Well, welcome back to my channel. Today's episode is about the vintage Selmer USA Omega line of professional saxophones and how they evolved or devolved and disappeared. If you find this information useful, don't forget to give a thumbs up, like, subscribe, and share. But we'll get right into it right now. First of all, the Selmer USA in the early 1980s introduced a line of professional saxophones, initially identified as the Omega 162 for the alto and 164 for the tenor. Then later the AS 100, AS for alto sax, and TS 100, TS for tenor sax. And then the AS 110 and TS 110 models. What I have here is some price lists we're going to take a quick look at so we can understand how it was priced in comparison to the Selmer Paris line of horns. And then we'll get into the indicators and the differences between them and how they evolved or devolved over time so you can properly identify them. First, we'll take a look at the pricing. So what we have here are a couple catalogs, one from the National Education Music Company, and the others from the Woodwind, which is commonly known as the Woodwind and Brasswind. Real quickly from NEMC. What we can see here, the Selmer USA horns were not in this catalog from January 1982. Just the Selmer professional horns from Paris were. And I have all the model numbers in this catalog, which is really nice when we want to look up things from the past. Take a look at the Woodwind right now. Here we are, top of the other page. Up here we can see, let's see if I can get the camera closer. Up here we can see Selmer Omega Alto. List price was $1,500. Super Action 80 Alto price was $2,300 and $2,500 for the tenor. So this only has the alto in it. There we go. A couple old catalogs that we have. So now that we know what the prices were back in 1983, we're going to start taking a look at pictures and seeing what the model changes were. So from the early 1980s until approximately 2001, Selmer USA made their top-line saxes in Elkhart, Indiana, and the Model 162 Omega Alto Sax was the first model introduced. The Model 164 was the first tenor introduced around serial number 823,000. It lacked the Omega title like the Alto had, and the model designation was changed to either TS100 or TS-100 when it was realized that professional players were not buying this Pro line. The AS110 and TS110 started having corners cut to lower costs. Later horns used a different numbering sequence starting with 1 million. The earlier saxes for the altos seemed to have a darker lacquer and many Selmer Paris Mark VI keywork styling. Later horns have brighter lacquer reminiscent of the Selmer Super Action 80 and later Mark VIIs. Earlier horns had a brass high F sharp key. Later models had a pearl high F sharp key. I originally explored the Selmer USA models to determine the similarities and dissimilarities they had with the Selmer Paris line of horns. It was rumored that Selmer USA had used the tooling from Selmer Paris Mark VI horns. Just doing a one-to-one comparison of the instruments, this could be accurate for the body tubes, but if you had worn out equipment for the body tubes, why would you use them? And with everything else, you're going to see the similarities and dissimilarities between the instruments. We'll go over that real briefly. There are many similarities and dissimilarities between the USA and Paris models, such as the 6 has flat right-hand side keys. The USA model is similar to the Mark VII and Super Action 80 with the curved ones. I was actually going to put a 6 in a Super Action 80 here, but I forgot. The 6 has shares posts with right-hand pinky key, low E flat C. The USA model has shared posts as the 6 did, but the spring design and cradle positions were different, and the length of the mechanism was also different. At one time, I bought some of these early Omega horns in alto and tenor because my sons played saxophones and I wanted them to upgrade to better saxophones, but then they went to Barry and other horns. So, of course, the key guard for the pants key guard on the backside, the Paris horn was cut out, and the USA horn had a cheaper iteration. Paris's horn had a mouthpiece neck opening stiffener and lower stiffener. USA models did not have that. The USA and Mark VII and SA80 used a heavy-duty three-point bell-to-body brace. The USA and Paris ones are visually similar, though comparisons are different. The 6 had the simpler two-point design ring, as many people know. The USA had a thinner, lighter plastic thumb hook design. The 6, 7, and Super Action 80 was a much thicker and sturdier design. Of course, I mentioned the pant key guards did not have the cutouts on the USA ones, whereas they did on the Paris models. Also, the key cups in the USA are not as deep as the Paris models. Top of the body stiffener is much more the Paris horns. Body of the bow to bell rings are heavier gauge on Paris horns. Keywork specifics are also different. Lengths of segments of the keywork, quality of finishing, etc. The USA horn was basically a copy of a Paris horn with specific parts that they had or made for this horn. Of course, the real test is, does the USA horn have the core sound of a Paris horn? Which, in my opinion, it didn't. It's a very nice horn, though. So originally, the Omega model had serial number ranges from 820 to 823 hundred thousands. All these earlier horns were apparently hand soldered like their Paris cousins. Later models, 100 and 110s, use more automated processes such as induction soldering and less precise key fittings. So let's get to some pictures that we have here. First of all, let's look at a couple advertisements here. This shows the 162 alto on the left and the 164 tenor on the right. Shows some of the old world craftsmanship that goes into making these horns, done by hand. Then one of the engravers. These are the Paris horns. I have a 82 Super Action 80 soprano, a lovely horn. I prefer it over the Mark 6s because of the palm keys and the table keys. Ironically, I like the Martin horns that have the table keys like the Mark 6, but I don't like sopranos with those type of keys on them. The only difference in the catalog was the color of the lacquer and the case, a case cover, I think. This was the Selmer USA professional horn, showing the three-point bell brace. Oh, and it should add, for instance, many of the posts that came up, like to support the bell guards, on the Paris horns, they were a ball and they were slotted with a screw going through it. On the USA horns, they were a cutout ball, and the guard just went on top of it and it was screwed in. So that was another difference between the horns too. This is a Paris horn by comparison. You'll notice on the USA horn, the side keys, it curves up here. This is a Mark VII Super Action 80 design from the 6. The 6 was flat. And you see the same type of design here. Of course, this has a round pearl here, an ovalized pearl for the high F sharp, round pearl for that F sharp. On the Super Action 80, it's actually a kink design here, but on the 7, it's actually a straight piece. So those are some other differences there. Here is one of the alto horns, an earlier model. You'll see the metal high F sharp, round lower F sharp. Looks like a saxophone, looks like a Selmer. No real major differences. You can see the thinner rings here. The cups, as I mentioned earlier, were also thinner from the Paris horns. Key pant guard, no cutouts like you have on the Paris horns. The thumb rest was thinner. You got a 3-point bell brace versus a 2 for the 6s. Next alto, a 82.3, I believe, has some gangrene on it. I'll take that right off. A lot of similarities to the Paris horns, of course. You got dissimilarities. Another thing is the ribs too. Forgot to mention the ribs on the USA horns are more Mark 7 like. Well, a lot of the arm back of the arm, the metal arms in the back where it hits against the body, actually hits against the ribs on the USA horns, like the sevens are. The sixes actually they hit against the body tubes many times. Here we got the curved side keys, round ovalized pearl, round pearl here. Looks like a six, kind of. Looks like a seven, kind of. Once you get used to looking at the identifiers. 3-point bell brace, kind of seven-ish. No cutouts on here. It is what it is. Here's a tenor, 8226. Ovalized high F sharp. All the other identifiers are all the same. One thing I want to mention too is always watch the G sharp key here and how it connects. I think it varies. I can't remember, but it changes. The sixes, I think this goes below the key work. On the super action 80s and sevens, it goes on top of the key work. I believe I meant to have my 6 and 7 here for comparisons, but forgot about it. More pictures here. You see 7 style side keys. Thinner bell rings. I remember my first 7 alto I got. This is actually broken off too, and I had to send it back to send me another one. The second one didn't play as good as the first one because I found out the palm D key. And speaking of which, the pad had a cut in it, a very minor cut. Here's an 829 tenor. Anyways, my alto 7 had the D key pad had a cut in it. I had it to repair people before they couldn't figure out what was wrong, that they never found the cut. I actually found the cut later on. It's interesting what happens with cuts is as you play, your breath, your hot breath, which contains water, gets into the pad. It makes it swell a little bit, makes it leak a little bit. So you lose that full tone that you have there. Anyways, another tenor sax, of course. Ovalized high F sharp, round F sharp here. All the other same indicators. You see here, this post head is cut out and just screwed onto it. Unlike the sevens, which is a slotted head. Nice engraving. 3-point bell brace. Thin thumb hook compared to the sevens. Now look at this gigantic rib for the palm keys. I don't think the Paris horns had that. Another Omega tenor. This is the earlier one. You see the brass high F sharp key. This is 7 like, exactly like the 7. Round pearl here. We'll get to an ovalized pearl here on later ones. 7 side keys. A little bit closer picture. And now this goes up to the top. This is 7 like. Once again, non-cutouts here. The heads aren't slotted like they are in the sevens. Oh, I found it interesting, this little cap here. I thought that was pretty cool. You see on horns, 875s, a lot of professional horns had a little cap there just to cover the post. Kind of cool. That's about it. You notice the rib now, they kind of cut the rib, so they're changing the rib, making it fit better on the earlier ones versus the later ones. As I mentioned here, see the feet, they're always on the rib. The sevens had bigger ribs, which allowed the feet to actually stay on the rib versus hitting the body tube like the sixes did. Also, later sevens had if you notice my earlier episodes I have about 6 versus 7, the late sevens had a pin and ball joint here. This one doesn't. This one has a standard fork like the earlier sixes and the sevens and super action 80s. Keywork is nearly identical. Of course, you got the Selmer USA logo here, not the crest you have on the Selmer Paris horns. Now, keep it when we see other pictures here, you'll see ASTS 100 and 110 stamped here someplace. 3-point brace. Also, I think on the USA horns, the ring is thinner than on the Pro horns. This had a rubber cover over the metal hook. I use those a lot. Here's an 830 tenor. Ovalized high F sharp pearl, round pearl, 7 key work there. Oh, it's that nice engraving. I like engraving in saxophones. Actually my 7 alto has no engraving. I thought about getting the boat on the lake like you have with the balance actions engraving on it, but never did. You can never have too many saxophones, right? The more the merrier. Here's another tenor, TS100. It's not identified as such yet. All the identifiers I mentioned before. Nothing changes. 830110 now. Notice the side of sharp is that ovalized pearl there now. Went from round one to an ovalized one. This is, of course, Mark 7 like. And has a stamp AS110 underneath the Selmer. Now, this engraving, I don't know if it's original or not. And you see Super Action 80 type high F sharp key. It's not a straight bar anymore, or nor is it an ovalized pearl. It's now a bent brass bar. You know, sometimes you wonder if they ordered parts from Selmer Paris and just threw it on these horns. Unless we find someone that actually worked there at that time, we don't know. Also, all the ribs are also larger. I may have mentioned that before. All the ribs are Mark 7 like. They're not Mark 6 like from the horns I've looked at. The Mark 7 ribs being much wider than the 6 ribs and bigger overall. For comparison, here's a 1 million horn, serial number in the 1 millions. You'll notice a lot of differences. Let's go over them real quickly. Look at the C sharp key. You'll notice it's on the inside. This is reminiscent of Selmer USA intermediate and beginner horns. Same keys here. The side of sharp key is now a metal blob, metal wand. Back to an ovalized key here. And it just gets cheaper from that point forward. You'll notice the bell brace is a just flat metal, similar to the Yamaha 61s and 62s at the time. Key work is a lot cheaper. This is just really a big step down, or a couple steps down in quality and manufacturing. Of course, you'll see ribs are kind of gone now. They just gone post on body all over the place. No bell to body brace anymore. Just kind of, you take the tube, you expand it a bit and slide it on, and it's soldered. There's an example of an intermediate horn in the 1 million mark. Real quickly, this is the S brace Signet that was out at that time frame too. Inner bell keys. I think they had a model of the outer bell keys with the S brace. These played fine. I could never play these gigantic table keys, and yet I play a Mark 7. It's just the layout design of it. I could always play Martins though that had different layout, but I couldn't play it on soprano. That's why I have a Super Action 80, not a Mark 6 soprano. Couple more pictures I have. Aren't pictures fun? Of course, you got the different emblem here on the neck. There's an earlier one. Metal bar for high F sharp, round pearl here, nice engraving. These are really nice horns to play. I mean, if you can't afford a Paris horn, a high-end professional horn, these are just fine. Of course, also I like cannonballs too. I had cannonballs myself. Cannonballs keywork is a little bit more soft though. Here's pictures from one of my other Selmer USA tenors here. I know because this is my floor. Nice engraving. This one had bell and bow engraving. Played real nicely though. My kids went to other horns though, so you know, I would love to say you can never have too many saxophones, but space, and you'll never play them. If you're not gonna play them, you know, one reason I don't have any Martin horns. I love Martin horns, but I don't have any. Now the interesting thing though, as I remember, is I was working since I have sevens and sixes, and I was communicating with a instrument engineer at the time, sax, and he told me that the USA table keys will fit on a seven. So I was thinking about swapping my seven table keys to the smaller six type table keys just to make horns more consistent because I had cough horns, six sevens, and the sevens had the big table keys. I had no problems playing them, but I thought I could make it more consistent. I never did switch it out because I'm like, what do I do? Put my big table keys on a Selmer USA horn and try to sell it that way? So I never did. Ovalized pearl. You can see the thinner bell rings here. Really, really nice horns, like I said. Anyways, I hope that really helps you understand the difference between Selmer Paris horns and the Selmer USA Omega ASTS 100 and 110 line and how it kind of devolved from there. And once again, if you like what you've seen, don't forget to give a thumbs up, give a like, subscribe, and share. Give any comments or questions down below, anything you like to see, any comparisons or evolution of anything, clarinets or saxophones or French horns or cornets. And I play a wide variety of instruments. Anyways, thank you for listening to my ramblings about the vintage Selmer USA Omega saxophones. You gotta love the knowledge, you gotta love life, you gotta love saxophones. Never have too many saxophones. If you marry, don't tell your wife I said that. Anyways, we'll see you next time.